This episode is sponsored by Property Filter. Find great deals faster.
Hello and welcome to the Financial Freedom Podcast, sponsored by us at Property Portfolio Building. This podcast is designed by real people on their journey to achieving financial freedom, and we'll focus on people who've either already attained it, who are joining us on that journey, or maybe a specialist topic that can help you build your technical knowledge to achieving and maintaining that financial freedom. We hope you enjoy it.
So this is one of our case study episodes where we're welcoming people who have achieved their financial freedom goals. So we're very delighted to have them. They're clients and joint venture partners of myself and Phil. So great to have you. Welcome, Jo and Pete Meek.
Hey guys, great to be here.
Welcome to sunny Manchester. Bring your coat, I hope.
Always.
So just to start with, I wanted to ask you an interesting fact. So I want to know about the two Jo Meeks in your family.
Well, there's obviously the delightful Joanna here, and everyone calls her Jo. But my uncle actually was called Jo Meek, and he was the first UK's independent record producer. Yeah. So he sort of pioneered the Simon Cowells of this world, and he was producing number ones in a living room in Holloway Road in London. So, and it's really cool because he's quite famous in the music industry. So when Jo introduces herself, she says, Jo Meek. Every now and again, there's this shiny eye incident where people go, "Oh, you're not related to the Jo Meek?" And I said, "Yes, I'm married to her." But they always talk about the other Jo Meek. So it's cool to keep his memory alive through my beautiful wife.
I remember you mentioned a movie that there's a movie about it.
Yeah, there's a movie called Telstar, and starred Kevin Spacey. So that's a bit unfortunate because it's not got as much exposure as you'd like. But
Might have got some exposure, but not the run and watch it type exposure.
And James Corden's in it.
James Corden's in it, yeah.
Oh, right.
And it's.
I'll have to check it out. No, very interesting. Right, so tell us a bit more about your story, your life, and how you've got here.
Well, we've been really privileged and really lucky. We got the opportunity. I worked for Nestle back in 2000. I was given the opportunity to either move to Melbourne, Australia, or Croydon, in London. So Jo and I thought about it briefly, and decided that we go to Australia in 2000. And it's great working for the company, and we did quite well. But financially, we weren't very focused. We were earning a good income, and we thought everything will be all right. And then
that's the trap, right?
That is the trap. You become complacent, and by 2007, I was running Australia's biggest ice cream company, so I was earning a really good income. But we were just abdicating responsibility for our financial well-being to other people. And then the credit crunch, the global financial crisis came along in 2007, absolutely smashed us. We pretty much lost everything, and in fact, it was worse than that. We were in debt after 2007, and that was really the wake-up call that we need to say, we've got to take responsibility for our own financial.
So was that property, pensions, investments?
We were
just general cash.
We were invested in highly leveraged stock market funds.
Right. Okay.
And so we literally had margin calls and had to basically sell everything that we had and borrow money to pay out our debt. So we were literally underwater. Wow. And, and it's our fault because we didn't do the due diligence. We didn't really understand, the risks that we were taking.
So big learnings out of that. Yeah.
Massive.
And it was very stressful at the time, but it turned out to be a gift.
It was a good thing, wasn't it?
Because it made us say, okay, we've got to be responsible for our own financial well-being. We can't abdicate it to a financial advisor, and we've got to take this on ourselves. And Jo and I talked, and the one thing we thought, well, property seems a lot less volatile than stocks and shares. And that's when we started to get into property. And we started in, 2011? Yeah.
We did some training as well.
Yeah, we did some training in Australia around buy-to-lets. And we basically, over the next 10 years, built a portfolio of buy-to-let properties in Australia. And, we did really well. This massive capital growth.
What were you building the portfolio? So you were working, you were head of Nestle, was it, in Australia?
I was head at Nestle to 2008. And then did a couple of other jobs. And then in 2011, I I moved into a business called Chobani Yogurt. And amazing story, Turkish immigrants, started in America, 2007, went from nothing to $1 billion turnover in 4 years. Yeah. So that's like, faster growth than Facebook.
People love yogurt.
People, Greek yogurt, your yogurt.
Yogurt.
Sorry, they say yogurt in Australia.
Yogurt. Right.
Joe's always correcting me on that.
You can say what you want.
But then in 2011, the guy, he said, everyone was telling him he was lucky because in America, they were all asleep and no one, he couldn't do it again. And he bought a little business in Australia in 2011 and we did it again. We launched in 2012 and by 2017, the business was turning over about 250 million Australian dollars, which that's about 125 million. And if you put that into context, there's like a third of the population in Australia. So it'd be like a 350 million pound business in the UK. And Chobani was the number one yogurt there. And we built that in 5 years.
So was a lot of your success from running that business then filtering back into the property investing you're doing in Oz?
He was a really generous guy and I was paid a really good wage. And all we did was we funneled some of that cash that we got into buy-to-let properties.
We set a goal for doing one a year.
Yeah.
We wanted to do by one. So when we started, we said, right, we'll try and do one a year until we've reached where we want to be.
Joe, while we're on it then, tell me more about your
My involvement?
story. Yeah.
My story?
Your story, yeah. Absolutely.
Well, while Pete was doing all of this.
let's rewind it slightly. Let's talk about, growing up, where you
growing
were.
up?
Let's talk about the whole thing.
Okay.
Obviously, you're from England.
We're both from
originally.
the UK.
Which parts?
Yeah. So I was born in Surrey and moved around a lot as a kid. And my dad had trouble with his health, so kept losing his job. And then anyway, we ended up in York and spent most of my time there. I went to ordinary comprehensive schools, then went to Leeds University, and then met Pete in '97, I think it was. Yeah, and the rest, they say, is history. I moved out of catering then, went to work at Nestle, and then we went to Australia and I became a dog behaviourist after having a very troubled dog. So, so that
and I
was
remember
me.
when we met, you were doing a lot of house sitting, looking after dogs as well, weren't you?
Well, I've been a bit lucky because of the skills I've developed over the years with dogs. When we travel, because that's the main thing that we do now is travel between the two countries, to save some money because, you don't want to spend it all. We house sit and we look after people's dogs and cats when we go away, and it's great.
Yeah, that is cool, isn't it?
Yeah, it's lovely.
So people go away and you go and look
Away.
after their...
Yeah, we've just finished 5 days looking after 2 cats in York. It's been brilliant.
Travel around
Very
the country
good.
as well,
Yeah,
doing that. No, it's
so
really
their
great.
cats are looked after. We get somewhere to stay.
And you get to live their life a little bit, right?
do,
It's really
yeah.
cool.
You meet the neighbours and-
Go to the pub quiz and all sorts.
Professional nomad.
Right,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
are.
that's cool. I love that.
It's good. Yeah, it's really good.
And how did you get to dog? Because we've had conversations. I had a
yeah.
puppy, right? We had conversations about my puppy, which is because she'd been attacked by dogs and stuff. But
Yeah.
how did you? Where did that come from? You mentioned you had a challenging
A
dog.
need. Yeah, we had a lovely dog who was a mess. So,
Right.
you see the cute puppy at the RSPCA or wherever and you think, oh, yeah, he's lovely. There's a reason they're bouncing off the walls and they're a bit manic. Anyway, he wrecked our house and we had a few people out and I didn't like their approach because I thought it was a bit harsh and you could see that he was stressed and anxious and that's why he was very destructive around the house. And then in the end, I read a book and I went, oh, this actually makes sense. And then the lady who wrote the book is based in the UK, so I actually was lucky because we were always coming back. So I came back and did her courses and trained up and
Bit different to catering.
yeah, and well, yes and no, because people.
Right, okay. It's people
It's
business.
not the dogs.
Yeah. The problem's never the dogs. What are you trying to say?
You know what she's trying to say, Phil.
It's absolutely people. It's
Yeah,
people all the way.
Yeah, true.
So and it's a privilege. I was going into people's homes all the time. I see everything. It's great.
So,
So-
update on my puppy. She can now play with dogs.
Ah,
Okay,
wonderful.
see?
There we go.
Time.
So, yeah, she's in the
Yeah.
last few weeks been able to be off
Well
lead
done.
playing with dogs. So
Yeah, that's good.
very, very pleased.
Yeah.
Right,
So
so
the early advice.
excellent. So moving forward then, financial freedom, what is it to you? What's your sort of plan moving forward? And what have you done to get there? What sort of strategies have you done to get to this position?
So mainly property in Australia, buying buy-to-let properties, renovating some of them, refinancing and repeating, and just quite patient. We built quite a lot of equity over about 12 or 13 years.
But it wasn't just pot luck, though. We
No.
did the research on how to find the
Yeah.
suburbs that were going to boom and the
good
ripple
location,
effect.
right.
So there was quite a
Good
lot of work
locations.
that
Yeah, we
went
had a very
into
clear
finding
brief.
the right
So
locations
what
to
were
buy.
the key criteria you were looking for in that
God.
from that perspective?
Lots, actually. It was
right,
so you would actually. I used to spend hours with maps, and then go through all the demographics and looking and just trending how the property markets were going in the surrounding suburbs.
Yeah, the
what
ripple
growth-
effect was really important in
Yeah,
Australia.
Absolutely.
That's really right. The ripple effect.
That's
Tell
exactly
me about
it.
the ripple effect, because this is something that is not widely understood.
Oh yeah, that's all we did, really, the ripple effect. So and we did. So bearing in mind, we were in Melbourne, and some of our properties were in Brisbane, which for most people won't understand, that's a 2-hour
It's a long
flight.
way.
Yeah,
17-hour drive.
You can't just pop in the car and go and have a look at the neighbourhoods. So it's actually just crunching the data on infrastructure growth. Trying to find out where supermarkets are opening. That's actually a really good one. Where supermarkets
Same here.
are building
very similar in the UK,
is a really good one, isn't it?
What is really some really good indicators like op shops, charity shops closing down, cafes opening up, organic
Yes.
stores,
Yeah.
and you could see it in the data. The Australia Bureau of Statistics, you could see how the profiles were changing over 5-year increments. But if you could see, okay, where there's more wealth moving into a suburb, you pretty much knew that you're going to get capital growth, and pretty much almost all of the properties in 10 years doubled.
So because obviously my background being from Australia, the way I understand the property market, I mean, you would know it better than me because I've been here a while, but it's really good for building your sort of capital nest egg in a way, and like building wealth. It's harder to make like monthly cash flow, isn't it? Because the rental market is a bit different to the UK. So probably did that force you to do more of those sort of things? You're like, we really need to get in areas that capital growth, whereas maybe people don't look at it as much here because they know it's fine. I'm getting cash flow if it grows, it's bonus type thing. So
Definitely.
maybe people should do more of those sort of things as well as focus on the cash flow and really get good results.
Well, our strategy was the starting point was to build a wealth base, because you're right. Our net yields on our properties was about 2%. So the mortgage rate's at 6%. It's not a great strategy now. You literally.
Good job. You already had the weather.
That's right. That's right. We had the weather. And we had the ability. The other good thing in Australia is any losses that you make in properties owned in your own name, you can offset against
Negative
your
gearing,
income.
isn't it? Yeah.
And so for me, because I had a great income, it meant that I could offset any short-term losses, but we were getting the capital growth. But we said, okay, once we've got a certain amount of capital behind us, we need to convert to cash flow, because the great thing about properties is you get leverage and you do get strong capital growth. But the problem is, right, we need a bit more cash. You can't just sell a bathroom. You're either all in or all out. So we said, okay, we need to move to property strategies that generate much more cash. And at the same time, we still don't know whether we're going to live in Australia or the UK long term. So we thought, well, let's start building cash flowing strategies in the UK, because it's more developed here in terms of cash flow. It's,
Another dog-related decision, I believe, which is
Just don't. We have to wait for our dog to die.
oh, you can-
Before you move back, you mean?
Yeah.
But where we met you guys was we got stranded here in COVID for 2 years, and the main reason for that trip was to understand where ultimately did we want to retire. And we probably were 99% certain. If the Australian Tax Office is watching, then we're only 99% certain that we're coming back here.
We nailed this,
And we said, well, we're most likely to be coming back to the UK, so we need to build a cash flowing portfolio here, and that's where we met you guys.
Yeah, so obviously now you've so your cash flowing, you've got a combination of service accommodation in York, and a portfolio of HMOs in Manchester.
Yeah.
Can I just ask the critical question here, which is, what is financial freedom to you? Because it means different things to different people.
Yeah, definition.
It's being able to work where you want, when you want, and with whom you want, and not worry about working for someone else, and always having a buffer in place that, if something goes wrong, your lifestyle's not at risk. And that's what we've got.
And time.
And time.
Time. Financial freedom is having time.
Yeah.
Time to do what you want when you want.
Yeah. It's funny you said, I'm just going to pick up on something you said there, because you said it's the ability to choose your work. So a lot of people think financial freedom is not working, but what is that? Why do you still have that in your locker?
Well, we're not working full time, but you know, you need to keep yourself interested in things, otherwise you go loopy. So doing property is quite nice.
Keep a passion and keep
a passion. It's nice because it's an interest. Yeah, and we love it. We
do it together,
and
which is great.
Which is great. So
that's fun.
Yeah, and so we can talk about it and make decisions together quite quickly, and it's enough for it not to feel like a full-time job. So we still, I mean, we travel.
So how many hours a week do you think you'd work at the moment, roughly?
On property?
On property?
On property, say, yeah.
Not much.
Two. On a busy week. So if it's been hectic, we might do 2 hours.
Mortgage renewal time.
This is actually, because you've got service accommodation properties, you've got some buy-to-let as well, don't you? And HMOs. So a lot of people consider them as sometimes difficult to manage for various reasons. So how do you think that's been able to work with you the other side of the world?
JV partnerships has been really important to us from the other side of the world, and also having a good support property team working with you. So because I think we probably would be more hands-on if we were in the country in reality, because we're like
interested.
Yeah.
So
you have a passion for it.
Yeah, exactly. But we can't do that because of logistics. So we have to outsource and having a good team. Yeah, exactly.
But having enough knowledge to know that they're the right people.
That's right.
Yeah, you
can't.
If you do not educate yourself, you can't find the right JV partners.
Yeah, definitely. You can't just go, I'll just hand over all responsibility, because we did that once and it doesn't work.
That's what happened in the credit crunch. We abdicated responsibility. So we trust. We find great partners like you guys. We trust, but we verify. We check in. We're doing that 1 or 2 hours a week. Is tracking what's happening on the holiday let business in York and just in the market, what's happening with a spare room for HMOs in Manchester. So we do. And
the progress report updates you get on the
awesome.
It's fantastic.
The walkthroughs are a bit fast because the guy he's obviously very busy, but the communication.
You have to feed that back to Adam.
The communication on the latest project has been absolutely seamless.
Yeah.
Absolutely seamless.
You don't feel that you're missing out on not knowing what's happening, or it's great.
Excellent. We can touch a bit more about that in a bit. But so on your journey to where you got to now, what are you most proud of?
I think the fact that we work together. I think
that's definitely really good.
I do love that.
Yeah, I think that's really. I mean, we've definitely got different strengths completely. You know, I'm not over the finances much.
But you understand them.
But I'll be all over the lettings and anything else that needs to be done. Yeah, absolutely. So, but it works, doesn't it? Because if we both did the same, then stuff would get missed.
Yeah.
And I think it is, even with working you guys, it always is both of you, which is really good. Because I think my starting thing in the WhatsApp message always hi both. It's never one or the other. It's you are the team.
Yeah.
And I think everyone sees you as that, and you work really well together. So,
yeah.
And I think that's something that people investing for their families. You need both partners. Ideally, should understand what's going on.
I think it's easier if that's the case, because otherwise you're having to convince potentially someone else of what you're doing is the right thing. So,
definitely.
We're on the same page.
Doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Support and stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree.
It's interesting, the asset classes that in your journey in asset classes, if you don't mind me asking, could just rewind a little bit, because I think that's really key for people who listen to this, is how have you got there?
Yeah.
Right? So that financial freedom for me, it sounds like you had an absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
Which is around the global credit crunch or financial crunch, whatever people want to call it, 2007, 2008. 4 years later, 2011, you're back investing. So your mindset didn't change that you needed to invest. It was, we just need to be more in control. And
we need to understand what we're doing.
As an asset class.
Yeah.
Asset class number one was based on capital growth.
Yeah.
And then after you allowed that capital to grow, you then started to look at other strategies to look at cash flow for more time freedom. And in those two strategies look to be service accommodation and HMOs and buy-to-lets. Mm-hmm. So it's a well-balanced portfolio, but they're very different.
Yeah.
So all of those three things are very different. They come with different challenges, different problems.
Yeah, completely.
So you wouldn't necessarily want a service accommodation agent to be managing your
No.
your HMOs and vice versa. You know, we
Absolutely.
certainly wouldn't want to do it the other way around. So, what is the plan with that portfolio? Do you see that as a long-term play? Those cash flow properties.
Well, we believe we've probably got 15 years of wanting to have enough interest to sort of continue to potentially grow these, albeit at a comfortable rate. But at some point, we've already got an exit plan to say, okay, well, when we're in our mid-70s, and it's well proven that your capacity to make good financial decisions starts decreasing as you get older. So we want to be in a position then where we're reducing our exposure and we're reducing our risk. And so alongside the property stuff, we do some stocks and shares stuff, but it's not stock picking, it's ETFs, and looking at things like the Cape ratio and working out when's a good time to invest, because it actually doesn't matter whether it's property or stocks and shares. You actually want to buy when there's good value. And that's basically what Warren Buffett does. He's
Stay in the market.
and
Yes.
time. Yeah.
Time in the market.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, but we've sort of got 4 income streams. We've got obviously the properties. We do some personal loans, which gives us a good return. We've got some stocks and shares stuff, mainly through ETFs, and we've got money market funds, which are basically just cash equivalent. So we always want to keep that so that if there's a problem, we're not at risk. And actually, if there's a problem, we're in a position to capitalize on it.
Yeah, and you have got a bit of diversification.
Yeah, we learned that.
So it's obviously
Across countries, across asset classes.
Is that one of the key learnings you got from the credit crunch?
Yeah. Margin loans are very scary. That's all you've got.
If you don't, and the thing is, again, is if nothing's ever gone wrong,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You are open to it going wrong, right?
Yeah.
But when something's gone wrong, you
learn.
learn more when things go wrong, right? So
Absolutely.
stop the podcast now. This episode is sponsored by Property Filter. Property Filter is the #1 property tool for today's property professional. It brings in all the data points and sources from all the property portals and auction sites into one convenient place. Then you have the option to overlay all the clever strategies found in the Property Filter blueprint to find motivated sellers faster. Now, we use it on a daily basis. It saves us over 80% of our time when looking for properties. And if that sounds like something that you want in your lives, please go to register.property-filter.co.uk/PPB, which is the discount code for this podcast. You will get 2 weeks free and a discount on your first month. That's it from me. Back to the podcast. So 2011, so we're in 2023 today, so we're talking about a reasonable length of time. So 2007, 2008 lost everything, even in debt. Started investing 4 years later. So that 2007 to 2008 to 2009, I imagine, was pretty
Tough.
Yeah, digging ourselves out of the hole.
Very
stressful.
tight.
And then you start getting ahead, and then the first thing you do is think, right, how do we do it again, but with more control?
Yeah.
And then
Knowledge. Yeah.
in that 13 year period to where we are today in 2024, you now have 4 income streams,
Yeah.
financial freedom, multiple asset classes, both on capital growth, cash flow, and retirement type assets in buy-to-lets, which are your retirement type assets.
Absolutely.
And in 13 years.
But we made, it sounds like when you put it, sounds all glorious and everything else, but that first move, we had a really lovely house and we sold that on purpose to downsize to free up cash.
In Australia?
In Australia.
Yeah.
So that we could start.
Right. So you that's how you started.
That's how we started.
You
We
actually
moved.
gave something up.
We sacrificed
up,
a
yeah.
beautiful house,
Moved into a townhouse.
moved into a townhouse in a little complex. So, half the size of our property.
Yeah.
And so
And now you live in other people's houses.
And now we
so,
we do have a house.
It's a really good point, actually, because sometimes always your initial residential property is your property that you can use as a vehicle.
That's
to
right.
access further.
That's
'Cause,
right.
I did a similar thing where we just bought an undervalued house and
Yeah,
did a bit of
add one.
refurb work, so it refinanced, and then suddenly you've got a pot that gets
Yeah.
you moving forward to invest. So
Yeah.
people can always look at that as an option.
that's how I
Absolutely.
started. I had
Yeah.
some money from shares in a business, but ultimately refinance the property I was living in.
Yeah.
Took some funds out.
Yeah, because you know, if you can refinance at whatever it is, 5%, and you can put it into something that's going to make 10 or higher,
Yeah.
you've doubled it
Absolutely.
straight away, haven't you? So
Yeah.
yeah, that's a really good bit of advice.
Yeah.
So moving on to that then, so what's the best advice you ever got given to help you move forward into where you are now?
I think, you've got to educate yourself. You've got to invest in yourself. You shouldn't invest in anything that you don't understand. That's the first thing. And then find brilliant partners. Find people.
Good people, yeah.
It's who, not how. You need to understand HMOs, but you don't need to know the details. You need to know who are the best people at doing HMOs and work with them. And I think if you understand it and you can find the right people, then you can go really fast, really safely. And risk only comes if you don't understand something. But if you work with someone who's an expert in that area, then your risk is massively reduced. So I think that's the most important bit of advice. You've got to educate yourself so you understand enough to know what good looks like, and then find the right people and work with them.
Yeah, I completely agree. And obviously we met in the PIN network where we're all getting further educated in property investing, weren't we? So it was a great place to meet. So moving forward to that then. So obviously, why did you choose to initially we met and worked joint venturing, and now we joint venture and use the services of PPP. Why did you choose to work myself and Phil?
Well, we trust you guys and we like you guys. That's trust. It's really important, right? That's first. But secondly, you guys know your shit. You know what you're doing. And I think what we feel really privileged to have sort of started with you guys, and the business was always been good, but it's just getting better and better. Like the standard of execution on the last project, if we're saying we're working 2 hours a week, probably only working 30 minutes, on that project, because it's
Reading the report.
reading and trying to slow down the walkthrough. And that was the most difficult challenge we had. And the fact that we're doing that from 11,000 miles away, and not had one sleepless night, spending quite a lot of money. How amazing is that?
Yeah, absolutely.
It was great, wasn't it? Because I think it was, you saw it for the first time as a finished product yesterday, didn't you?
Yeah,
we did.
Did you? I don't think you did get to see it before. You got to see
I
it.
just saw it. And this is how good I am at detail. Was I'm stood looking at the wrong house. Joe said, "That's not the right
It's
house."
still over there. Yeah, so we actually got to see it at the beginning and then at the end,
Yeah,
and it was just transformed.
brilliant.
And the quality of the work has just been amazing.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah, it's just been fantastic.
No, I appreciate the feedback. Yeah, it's just, it has been a lot of work over the years building up, because like you say, it's where we're at now, and the teams that, it's
you can see
working
it.
with great
It's
people,
seamless.
it's building up excellent build.
The workmanship.
Yeah.
You can see the progression between the projects from the start to today, but also the ability to do the deals as well is better, because we, as an organisation, are better known as well. So the deals we do are usually now, if we give it them, we know it's done. The deal as well. So, and you guys get the benefit from that, which I think is a really key thing, because you make your money on the deal, right?
Absolutely.
Because the cost, and you can be as good as you can be in the build, but if you don't do the deal right in the first place, that is the critical.
Well,
part.
we walked around an area yesterday and showed a couple of other projects. One that we're about to buy for a client. One that was that we're doing halfway through development.
Yeah,
and
sensational project.
Around the corner with two of the agents that we built really good relationships with, and talking about project stuff. So it is really important, that aspect of it.
Yeah, I think. Cool.
Excellent. So should we move on to a bit of the details of case study? Because obviously we did the project looked at yesterday in Deans Road.
Yeah.
So do you want to run us through a bit of the detail of that project and what it involved and how it works for you guys?
Yeah. So it's a really great project. I think the purchase price was 170,000. And what was really interesting is to pay for this, Joe and I put in some cash personally, but we also used our SAS pension. So our SAS pension lent us 130K. We put in the rest of the cash to buy the property and then do the renovation work. And the numbers are phenomenal. I think the gross development, we spent all up, I think it's going to be about 340,000, including interest. And the gross development value is about 450. So phenomenal. And it's going to cash flow.
And that's a cash flowing development as well.
That's right.
The key is to keep a cash flow. So it's still got a good profit in it, which is good.
So we've made £120,000 of profit and it's going to pay us the revenue, for the rest, for the rest of the time we own it. So a really, really great deal. And what's even better is it's beautiful accommodation for someone. We're not making money out of, taking advantage of anyone. They're beautiful properties. So you're delivering an amazing service. So that feels really good as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, because then it's a key question. It's a key thing there, because when you think of a HMO, there's so vastly...
There's a range, right?
Ranged, right? It's like any space. It's like any space, where you've got, if you look at the car space, at the top end, you've got your McLarens and your really, really high end, your Bugattis and stuff like that. And then one down, you've got your Ferraris and your Lamborghinis and stuff like that. And then the bottom end, I won't say the bottom end, but I don't want to insult any car manufacturers, but it's a whole range. But ultimately, they've all got four wheels and a steering wheel, right? So it's the same with the HMO, right? Which is the industry has a bad connotation, I think. And what's your take on that, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, yeah, I agree. I think when you say
when we were students,
and I think that's where it comes from. When we were students, oh my God, it was awful.
Yeah,
I mean, it's fine now. So I think, but moving into HMOs, historically, people think they're like DOS houses.
It's got bad stigma around, doesn't it?
It has. It's like it's for people.
It's the same in Australia, interestingly.
It is, yeah. But now I think it's changing though, because people expect more for their money, and I think that's fair enough. They should be living in something that's comfortable and nicely decorated and welcoming. I think
this property in a way is a bit of a good example, because we've used full permitted development rights, and in its location, it probably would have had a lot of challenges with planning from neighbours and things like that, even though it's a really good product. It's got really good tenants in it, and people look after it. We haven't had any complaints from neighbours, but before that happened, they would have been.
They're fearful, right?
Yeah,
big fuss from the neighbours.
People think they're horrible. Yeah, absolutely, but no.
Unfairly, but yeah, obviously there are bad tenants, things like that, bad properties, but that's certainly not what we.
You're changing the mould, which is good. Yeah.
And I think it's good that the fact that you guys manage it, so it is an end-to-end process, and we know the detail and the process that you guys go through to find the right tenants and to match the tenants up to the property, and so that minimises any risk of issues, right? And and no doubt will maximise tenure of occupancy. So that's great.
Yeah, and having that was one of the key things, wasn't it, for us to have that end-to-end service? Because obviously when we're delivering the build, we've got our lettings team, which
commitment, isn't it?
Which we look after, and we want to make sure that there's minimal maintenance problems, the right tenants going, all those sort of things. So the build aspect before is important, as well as the lettings part all works together.
Would have been an absolute nightmare. We got a great property, and they said, right, Pete, Joe, you need now to let it out in Swinton from the other side of the world. It would have been impossible. So the fact that it's an end-to-end process and it's effectively as hands-off as it could ever be, that's really important to us. So it's a great use of time and money.
there are other services that do the build side of things, but there's very they're quite the common denominator is they then hand it off to somebody else. Right, and we still hold the flag that we've never had to evict a tenant that we've found.
No, brilliant.
The only evictions we've ever had to do are tenants we've inherited, because obviously we run an agency as well. We do inherit tenants. People come to us with properties.
Absolutely.
And we still hold that. Any tenant that we've had in, we've never had to go through an eviction process, that's great. Which is really, really a solid.
Yeah, credit to the team.
Oh yeah, Sarah and Hannah and the team, and Amber and the team are brilliant at making sure that tenants are well looked after. They feel well looked after.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when needs must, they will step in. And do something about it. And that's the proactive side of it. I think and you mentioned it's not just about the deal and the build, because if you don't have that aspect, that's what pays your bills. Right? That's what gets you the valuation, is because you've got great tenants with contracts that pay you your rent. And when the valuer comes around, they see these great tenants and they see these great contracts and they see these great rents. Guess what's going to happen?
Yeah, they're going to.
And it's such an afterthought for people, because they're always focused on, I think the rent's going to be that, but let's focus on the build, or let's focus on the how much the build is going to cost. And for me, it's a bit like, well, spend another 10 grand on your builder, but get the right tenants, you're going to be much better off, right?
Yeah,
completely.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
So if you had to narrow down to some of the key challenges that we solve for you, for these sort of projects, what do you think that'd be?
Well, firstly, it's just finding the deal, right? That worked for the numbers that we had, and you guys did that. And
The next headache is usually finding the trades and that sort of stuff.
you
You've
guys,
done all that.
yeah. So
And then managing the tenants. It is literally all the in each area.
Well, they're the big
taking
three,
all the
aren't they?
head. He's taking the headaches away from all of it, which is amazing.
Yeah, they are the big three.
They are the big three.
Yeah.
and it's really cool that the fact that you're managing the lettings. So we know that you're going to do a bang up job in terms of the renovation, because otherwise you end up with the problem, right?
Yeah, absolutely right.
And that is such a good
team,
insight.
and we've got a handover process between our projects and our lettings team. And
Well,
Yeah.
as soon as things aren't 100% perfect, it's
They're the best snagging team in the business, right?
Yeah,
it, yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And
it's
it gets
something we've got
done.
to improve on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the tenanting team have come back and said, why is this not done?
Yeah.
We've done. I don't know. Why has it been
The
done?
teams get accountable to each other, which is great.
That's awesome.
But it is, again, and I'm essentially about commitment. So it's about doing what you say you're going to do, right? So I say to you, here's a property, it's going to let really well. You then spend, like you said, 340 grand on that property, and then it doesn't let.
Yeah.
And this happens. I get calls all the time. All the time. Can you help me with the letting of this property? We've done this in this location, and I'm sat here going,
Yeah.
Yeah,
really
it's-
sorry,
it's
we
a
can't
good
take
point
it
actually,
down.
because location is really, really important.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously, walk around Swinton Essex is a great area for HMOs. But yeah, there's some areas where
Swinton's in Salford for those that aren't local.
Oh, yeah.
Salford Council, so you can get some really cheap properties that you can do a refurb and add value to, but they just not necessarily going to be great for lettings and HMOs. They just you need
The build cost is the same.
You need the ingredients like employment, amenities,
Oh.
transport, convenience, all those sort of things. If you're missing some of those ingredients, it might not be suitable in certain areas. That's for sure.
And that's what we get with, using you guys, because you've got the experience, the areas. So that risk is removed for us.
Yeah. And we solve problems. Like, when you do great deals, you solve problems, because we're doing another deal for you at the moment, right? Which is what we'll talk about a little bit, where there are lots of problems, and those problems include that the seller can't sell his property at the moment because he never got the requirements for his lawful planning status, and there's now an Article 4 direction in place, so we have to go back to the drawing board to get that in place. And he's got a problem tenant because he let it through an agency that didn't do any checks on the tenants, and this person is, a real problem. There's drug paraphernalia in the site, and he's aggressive to other tenants. All the other tenants have left. You've now got one problem tenant.
Wow.
It's all the classic things.
Yeah.
So rather than his property now being worth what in that location, similar. Obviously, it's 5 rooms, not 6, like one. So 5 rooms. So
Yeah,
let's
because
knock off
it is more of a
67K.
cosmetic refurbishment, this one, because
so
the ones we just talked about was a full sort of back to brick.
Yeah, so
whereas this one's a
rather
lighter.
than his property now being worth 350 to 380K in that location, which is a really good location, it's really central, we're buying it at 250.
Yeah.
And that's that's the value of the tenanting.
Yeah.
And the management. And people, it's funny when we get calls from people who say, oh, well, I pay, X% to my local high street agent, but I want to talk to you about it. Can you match their rate? 'Cause I'm not happy with the service. I'm like, well, there's 3 things, isn't there? Good, cheap, and fast. You can only have 2. You can only have 2.
Yeah, it's what you get.
It's value. It's value you
Well,
want.
that's it.
It's completely the value.
And we're not expensive by any stretch.
No.
We're right for HMO, certainly.
Yeah, and when we say part of our mission is to help our clients maintain financial freedom, that is the letting side, because you need to look after the property, we'll have the right tenants,
Yeah.
HMOs, good cleaners, fortnightly, that do lots of different things. And
Getting there is
regular
hard yards,
inspections.
but keeping it is hard yards. There's no, 2 hours a week doesn't seem like hard yards, but it's like
2 hours for us, more hours for you.
Yeah, a lot more
course.
hours for you.
For the management team, it's hard yards, that's for sure. Right, so moving on then. So this is a question from our previous guest. So what we do at the end of each episode is you write down a question, and then we'll bring it out for a guest in the future. So one of our previous guests said, what are the top 3 pieces of advice you would like to give someone new to property investing?
Start.
Just get going,
Start.
basically, number 1.
No one ever said, oh, I wish I'd waited to start.
Yeah.
No one. If
Yeah,
you talk
it's
to anyone in property, everyone goes, "Oh, I wish I'd started earlier."
It's a good point, isn't it? 'Cause, yeah, the people that try
What
to
about
time
interest
them-
rates?
People trying to time the market. Oh, interest rate's going to drop, and then I'll do it. And yeah, you just need to get going. Don't you?
What's that phrase?
Buy-
It's time in the market, not
Timing.
timing the market.
The other one
That's
is
the-
don't wait to buy properties. Buy properties and wait.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
very
very good.
wise. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Start. What else
Right
would you
on.
say?
You've got to educate yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you need to understand what you're invested in. And then the third one is you've got to partner with the best people for what you want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a bit of a leverage type thing as well. So leverage your time with other people.
Yeah.
But work with the
Absolutely.
right people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And have complementary skills, and they've got to be people that you enjoy spending time with, because okay, it's only 2 hours a week, but it's 2 hours a week that you're going to be spending time potentially with people that you want
You just need
to
to
enjoy.
like and trust, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Absolutely. That's
Yeah.
key.
Yeah, and I think your points there of start and educate are good, because they really work together, don't they? Because you can start with no education and it can be a problem. can't it? But if you
Ready, fire, aim, then, right?
yeah, if you get going, but you're also educating yourself. You be around other people that are doing it
That's
and things
right.
like that. Because obviously we met in a mastermind scenario where everyone's getting going and educated, and you can talk to each other, and any problems that come up, you've got people around you that can help with and stuff like that. So
Absolutely.
I think getting going in conjunction with that, I think really works. Doesn't it? Is that?
Yeah.
Do you agree?
I agree.
Completely. That's what we did. Yeah.
And we've always found help as many people as you can. The great thing about property is it's not necessarily competitive. For me to get a great property doesn't stop you getting a great property. And we've found the more people that we help, the better our life becomes.
Comes back your way, doesn't it?
Always.
It's a
Calmer.
people business.
It
Yeah.
is a big
100%.
business.
It's not everything's got 4 walls and a roof, and then everything else is people.
Yeah, relationships over transactions, definitely.
Absolutely.
Right, and we've asked you to bring a question along for us that.
Well, the question for us is just how much is enough when you're developing financial freedom, and how do you work that out for people? Because we've gone through quite a process to understand what's enough for us, and it doesn't mean that we necessarily stop, but we know we're safe now, and if we do anything else, it's about helping others.
And it
Yeah,
changed.
yeah.
We found it changed
Yeah.
as well. We thought we knew what enough was. And then when we came back here and lived here, because the cost of living is very different here, we went, okay, we don't need that much. We only need this much.
Yeah.
So it shifted.
It can change over
So
time.
You reduced
can
it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
we reduced
All right,
it.
there you go.
So I think
Yeah.
for me, because I'd looked into this quite a bit the last few years, but I think initially it's to cover your living expenses in your current life. And then I also looked at, what you call a bit of your rich life, which involves a few more holidays. So like, as an example, I want to do a couple of months a year in Australia.
Yeah.
So, that's not just covering living expenses. You need to have, funds for that as well. So it's working out what just gets me living in my current lifestyle. And then what's my sort of rich life where I can do these few trips a year and go to Australia for 2 months and those sort of things. And then going there, that's the figure.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's my perspective on it.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I've got. I think there's 3 freedoms. So we talk about financial freedom. I actually break into 3 subcategories. One is your basic financial freedom, which is your bills are paid.
Yeah.
So I had it on my phone every day, which was I had 3 freedoms on my phone. So my alarm goes off at 9 a.m. every morning. So the bills and your cost of living is that first freedom. So I worked out. I think when I first started, my cost of living was like. Sorry to anybody in the south, but it was like £3,268. So apologies to anybody. Apologies to anybody who lives south of Birmingham, but that's we live in the north. So so that was my first financial freedom, and so that's financial freedom to me. But then the next one is time freedom,
Yes.
and the time freedom is then not only do I do this, but then the time freedom is I then can, like you were saying before, pick and choose what I do to level up, because that financial freedom doesn't pay for holidays. It doesn't pay for these things. And then the final freedom is location freedom, which is I now no longer require a base, because I can live anywhere at any time and do whatever I want. And that is like you were saying, in terms of like the funds to do that the location freedom.
Yeah.
I think
Which
John
is,
Peter a good example of that.
Yeah.
What percentage of time in the last, if we said 5 years, have you spent between England and Australia?
It'd almost be 50-50.
About
Yeah.
50-50, yeah. I thought it was going to be something around
Yeah.
that, but so obviously you've been able to do that between
Yeah.
both countries. So that's sort of a location freedom way that you got.
Absolutely.
And it was interesting at the start of those 5 years, our wealth was still increasing because the value of the properties was increasing, but our cash flow wasn't enough, and it wasn't until we did the stuff in the UK with with the HMOs and the holiday lets that we were covering our costs, but now we're easily covering those costs.
Yeah, when VAT is your problem.
Yes.
It's a good problem.
On our holiday lets,
Yeah.
First world
Probably a story
problems.
for another day, right? First world problems. Lovely. Okay. That wraps us up, right?
That wraps us up. So thanks very much for coming.
Well, and
It's been
just
a really
thank
great
you,
chat.
thank you for you guys for all you've done for us, and it's been brilliant working with you, and we're really excited to be
going.
on the journey.
Let's do it.
Absolutely, our pleasure.
Absolutely. 15 years, I wrote that down. How old will I be?
We'll have a lot of
Younger
HMOs
than
by
us.
then.
I'll be on 2 hours a week. Lovely. Thank you once again for joining us on the Financial Freedom Podcast, sponsored by us at Property Portfolio Building. If you want to get in touch with us about today's podcast or any of the learning topics that we've gone through today, you can email us at podcast@invest-prop.co.uk or get in touch with us with whichever your social media platform of choice is. If you think you would add value to us as a guest on this podcast, you can please get in touch and let us know what you would be able to talk to us about. Other than that, we wish you well on your financial freedom journeys. And once again, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you on the next one.